1918. The Tsar, the Empress, 5 children. They shot all 7. Then they tried to make them disappear. For 70 years, the Soviet government denied knowing where the bodies were. The execution was admitted. The burial was not. A family of 7, plus 4 loyal servants, vanished into the forests outside a small industrial city in the Ural Mountains. Rumors spread almost immediately. One of the daughters had survived. She had been shielded by diamonds sewn into her corset. A soldier had smuggled her out. She was alive somewhere in Europe, waiting to reclaim the throne. The rumor became a legend. The legend lasted almost a century, and for decades there was no way to prove or disprove it, because no one could find the bodies. Then in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the ground finally gave up its secret. Let us start with the family. The Tsar ruled an empire that stretched from Poland to the Pacific. He was quiet, private, and by most accounts a devoted father. His wife, born a German princess and granddaughter of Queen Victoria, had converted to the Russian Orthodox faith and became more devout than the clergy themselves. They had 5 children, 4 daughters born in quick succession, and finally, a son, the heir. The boy suffered from a bleeding disorder inherited through his mother's bloodline. A single bruise could become life-threatening. The disease shaped the family's every decision, their isolation, their reliance on a Siberian mystic who claimed he could stop the bleeding, and ultimately, their political destruction. When revolution swept through Russia in 1917, the Tsar abdicated. The family was placed under house arrest, first in a palace, then moved to a governor's mansion in a Siberian town, and finally to a merchant's house in the city that would become their grave. The house had been requisitioned by the local Soviet authority. Its windows were whitewashed, so the family could not see out, and no one could see in. For 78 days, 7 members of the royal family and 4 of their remaining servants lived in that house, waiting for a fate that had already been decided. In the early hours of a July morning in 1918, the family was woken and told to dress. They were led to a basement room. The father carried his son, who was too ill to walk. They were told a photograph would be taken. Chairs were brought for the Empress and her son. The rest stood behind them. Then a group of men entered with revolvers. A written death sentence was read aloud. The Tsar had time to say one word before the shooting began. The room filled with smoke. The bullets struck the walls, the floor, the bodies. Some of the children did not die from the first volley. Diamonds sewn into their corsets had acted as armor, deflecting the rounds. The executioners finished with bayonets and pistols fired at close range. The entire killing took roughly 20 minutes. Afterwards, the bodies were loaded onto a truck and driven into the forest. The plan was to throw them down an abandoned mine shaft. When that proved too shallow, the soldiers retrieved the bodies and tried a different approach. They dug a pit beside a dirt road. They poured sulfuric acid over the faces to prevent identification. They laid wooden railway sleepers across the top and drove a truck back and forth over the grave to compact the earth. 2 of the bodies were separated from the rest. They were burned with gasoline in a bonfire nearby and buried in a smaller, shallower pit about 70 meters away. The location was recorded in a secret report. The report was classified, and for over 60 years, the grave remained hidden. In the mid-1970s, a Russian geologist obtained a copy of the secret execution report. He spent years cross-referencing the geographical details with local maps. In 1979, he quietly located the mass grave. He told almost no one. He knew that under the Soviet government, revealing the site would mean imprisonment or worse. So he waited. He waited 12 years, until the Soviet Union collapsed. In 1991, with the political landscape transformed, the grave was officially exhumed. Inside were 9 skeletons, 5 female and 4 male. The condition of the remains confirmed the historical account. Sulfuric acid damage on the skulls, bullet wounds, signs of bayonet trauma. But there were only 9 bodies. The family had 7 members. 4 servants had been killed alongside them. That made 11. 9 were in the grave. 2 were missing. The Tsar, the Empress, and 3 of their daughters were identified through a combination of skull measurement, dental records, and a brand new forensic technique that had never before been used on a case this old. DNA testing. A team extracted mitochondrial DNA from the bones. Mitochondrial DNA passes only through the mother. Every child inherits an identical copy from their mother, who inherited it from hers. The chain stretches back centuries. To confirm the Empress's identity, the team needed a living maternal relative. They found one, the husband of the British Queen, a naval officer and prince who happened to be the Empress's grand-nephew. He shared the same mitochondrial line. His DNA matched the bones. The Tsar's identity was confirmed through a separate mitochondrial comparison with his brother's remains, which had been exhumed from a known grave. The science was conclusive. The Tsar, the Empress, and 3 of their daughters were in the mass grave. So were the family physician, a cook, a valet, and a maid. But 2 children were missing. One was the son, the heir who had a bleeding disorder. The other was one of the daughters. Which daughter was absent became the subject of a fierce argument between Russian and American forensic teams. The Russians believed the 3rd eldest daughter was missing. The Americans believed it was the youngest. The youngest daughter's name had become the most famous in the family. Not because of how she lived, but because of what happened after she supposedly died. In 1920, a young woman was pulled from a canal in Berlin after a suicide attempt. She refused to give her name. Eventually, she claimed to be the youngest daughter of the Russian Tsar, the sole survivor of the execution. She said a sympathetic soldier had found her alive among the bodies, smuggled her out of the basement, and helped her escape to Romania. Her story captivated Europe. Some members of the extended royal family believed her. Others were convinced she was an imposter. The debate lasted 6 decades. She fought for legal recognition in German courts. The case dragged on for years and ended without a definitive ruling. She moved to the United States, married a history professor, and continued her claim until her death in 1984. A hospital in Virginia had kept a tissue sample from a surgery she underwent years earlier. When DNA testing became available, researchers compared her tissue to the Romanov bones. The result was unambiguous. She was not a Romanov. Her mitochondrial DNA matched a Polish factory worker's family. She had been born in what is now Western Poland and had adopted the identity of a murdered princess. The most famous Anastasia in the world was a fraud, but her story had been so compelling and had lasted so long that even after DNA exposed the lie, some people still refused to believe it. And the real question remained unanswered. Where were the 2 missing children? For 16 years, search teams combed the forest around the burial site, looking for the second grave described in the secret report. In the summer of 2007, 3 amateur archaeologists found it, 70 meters from the first grave, exactly where the report said it would be. Inside were 44 bone fragments and teeth, heavily burned, damaged by fire and acid, but not destroyed. 2 independent laboratories, one in the United States military and one in Austria, extracted DNA from the fragments. They tested mitochondrial DNA, Y chromosome markers, and autosomal short tandem repeats. The results confirmed what the secret report had described. One male, one female, both children of the Tsar and Empress, the son the heir with the bleeding disorder, and one of his sisters. Combined with the 5 family members identified in the first grave, all 7 Romanovs were now accounted for. No one had survived. No one had escaped. The diamonds in the corsets had delayed the bullets, not stopped them. The story of the rescued princess was a fantasy built on wishful thinking and sustained by the absence of a body. DNA ended the absence. In 2018, 100 years after the execution, the Russian government formally confirmed the identification of all the remains. The case, as a forensic matter, was closed. But the story was not entirely over. The Russian Orthodox Church, which had canonized the family as saints in 2000, initially refused to accept the DNA results. The church argued that the chain of custody of the bones had been compromised during the Soviet era, and that the identification could not be trusted. For 2 decades, the church and the state disagreed over whether the bones in the cathedral were genuine. It was not until 2018 that the church agreed to participate in further DNA testing. The results matched every previous finding. The family now rests together in a cathedral in St. Petersburg. The Tsar, the Empress, and 5 children, 7 coffins, 7 names, all confirmed by science. The youngest daughter, the one whose name launched 1,000 myths, lies among them. She was 17 years old when she died. She never escaped the basement. She never crossed into Romania. She never stood on a bridge in Berlin. She died beside her family in a room full of smoke and noise in the early hours of a summer morning, in a country that would spend the next 70 years pretending it never happened. DNA did not bring her back, but it gave her back her name, and it silenced, once and for all, the longest-running impersonation in modern history. Thanks for watching. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover DNA mysteries, ancient forensics, and the cases history tried to forget.